Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, the best place to find mental health and addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
Each week, we profile a guest who shares openly about their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who do struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us and that no one understands. We understand.
I'm Terry McGuire, the creator and co-host of this podcast. You have my promise that we'll keep it real here. Depression is real, and we're not going to sugarcoat our discussions about it.
Hope is also real, and you'll get a dose of that here too. I'm Carly McCullough, a licensed social worker and educator, and Terry's daughter. We've both experienced depression and also support loved ones struggling with it. We're here to normalize talking about depression and mental health in our communities, as well as our families.
And to share real-world tested strategies that have worked for other people who have walked similar paths. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Carly. Have you seen any of those reality shows about interventions?
Definitely.
Yeah, and they're designed for ratings, so they tend to give a very dramatic, confrontational, and simplified impression of what's actually a complex process.
They often sort of show substance use or behavioral addictions as problems that escalate to a single boiling point, when in reality, recovery is usually a long and nonlinear process with a bunch of ups and downs.
Today's guest, Evan Jarshar, is a licensed psychotherapist and a mental health interventionist. He's been in the business more than 20 years, and he describes the process very differently.
Evan has shared his insights on network news, the Huffington Post, and on keeping up with the Kardashians. Today, he talks with us about how real-life interventions are different, how he uses his own experiences with depression, anxiety, and substance use to approach the struggling person with empathy, compassion, and a plan. Here is Evan giving his voice to depression.
So I work all over the country with people that have depression, anxiety, and a whole host of other mental health issues, right? Mm-hmm. And they're not willing to get help for whatever reason. And in a lot of cases, they're also self-medicating to try to handle the symptoms, right? And I'm very fortunate in a crazy way that, I'm able to, as a professional mental health interventionist, use my own personal experiences that I've gone through. So in real simple terms, it's being able to take the childhood traumas that I went through and the loss of my father and separation with my mom and trying to cope with life on my own for the most part, and then try to kind of keep my head together, which I didn't do for a while, and then come out the other side.
The other side, as many of us with depression can attest, is not a place that's easy to believe we can get to when we're deeply in it.
Yeah, I think that anyone that has experienced significant depression, debilitating depression where you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to deal with life, you just, you don't even want to exist, like that kind of a feeling. I think that once you find something, a way that will help you not feel that way, you want to keep doing it as much as possible. And that's why sometimes, unfortunately, substances can kind of get in the way, or because they initially can help fill the void to some degree.
Absolutely. They are.
Unfortunately, they end up destroying a lot of people at the same time. But understand that at the end of the day, if we stay in place, if the person stays in place, there is a certainty, a very high probability that things aren't going to get better. So some type of intervention, some type of change needs to occur.
Interventionists, for those who can afford them, are one agent of change. And while reality shows have increased awareness of their role, they have also created misconceptions that can influence decisions.
I think that is also one of the things that holds a lot of families back, is that fear of, I'm not going to put my loved one on the street. It's inhumane. They're battling depression. They're battling bipolar disorder. They're battling schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. How are we going to do that? We can't. And I agree with them. We can't. There is a certain level of compassion. There is a certain understanding that this person is not in their right mind. They're not able to make conscious decisions or rational decisions. And their judgment is compromised in that there is something organic going on inside there that is affecting their ability to say, okay, fine, I need to go get some help. And with that said, and it's not to also say that the person battling substance abuse isn't having some degree of that as well. So let's say I'm working with somebody who is having some type of delusional disorder, right? It's not about telling somebody who believes that the world is ending, that it's not ending. It's really to help join them. And that must feel terrible every single day that you wake up dreading going through the rest of the day because you feel that it's only a matter of time before it all stops. I'm not here to tell you that it's not, but I am working with the people that love you the most to help look at a way that you don't have to feel that pain. Would you like to not feel that pain? Or would you like to not have those nightmares? Well, of course I would, but there's no way to possibly do that. Okay, but you would agree. Let's find a way to do that. And that's kind of the avenue. That's the approach.
Evan says most families he works with reach out to him when they realize that all the things they've tried haven't worked, and that a third party who is not emotionally connected to their loved one and has dealt with people in similar situations might be more successful.
When you're talking about the person that won't get out of bed, right? Or the person that won't eat, or the person that oversleeps or can't sleep or is crying all day, the person that won't stop shopping, right? And so the husband is yelling at the wife is yelling at the husband, the mother is yelling at the son. And at the end of the day, you can yell all you want, but you're not going to yell away the disorder, the disease. You're not going to yell the depression out of them. If anything, what you might end up doing inadvertently is you may end up be putting your loved one further into a corner that makes it even that much more difficult for them ever to reach out and go, fine, I'll go get some help.
Talk about a rock in a very hard place. Evan calls it the friend or family member's own bottom when they just can't do it anymore.
Maybe that's the time to stop trying to get through and get somebody in there that may be able to help get through as a third party, caring, competent, comprehensive professional to help break through that impasse. Mm-hmm. That bed, that room will no longer be able to be used as a petri dish for the depression anymore. We can't do it. Otherwise, you may end up simply perpetuating the disorder, making it even more comfortable for the symptoms to grow and thrive. And that's where a family feels stuck.
Evan says the goal is to end up with a comprehensive plan of action for long-term recovery, with everyone working together. Walk me through what it actually looks like. So I've tried everything. I'm at my wit's end. My person who I love is not getting better. And I'm afraid, probably afraid, maybe a little angry, maybe frustrated, all the things I might be.
Yeah.
And I finally call someone and I say, Evan, help. What happens when you show up?
Well, before I show up, we've organized a plan. In other words, we have already looked at who's going to be participating, what's going to be said, what's not going to be said, what are the contingency plans in place if that person needs to be stabilized, be hospitalized, what happens if they actually try to hurt themselves. So we have put together an organized, very loving, very comprehensive, and I'll use the word loving again, approach with meaningful content, with plans of where this person's going to go, how they're going to get there, what do we do when they refuse, what happens when they agree. And at that point, we then make entry. And making entry with somebody who tells you or has told people they don't want to exist. They don't want to eat. They don't care. They don't want to necessarily kill themselves, but they're done. They're done. And in many cases, they're hearing things, seeing things, and there's trauma all that stuff together. So there is no cookie cutter answer.
Carefully selected family members and other close allies then share their love and concern for the person who's struggling. Then the predetermined solution is offered and rejected.
Well, they always do. Or a lot of times they do. Initially, they absolutely. They're just going to say, get out of here.
I think I would have in my depression, and I'm an agreeable person.
Absolutely. So I have to be able to sink back, go back into my moments, or when I wouldn't care what you had to say.
Right.
This is what's happening. I have to be able to kind of go there and then work towards mapping out a plan on how we can approach somebody whose spirit, whose being has been or is being consumed with depression. And how do you reach somebody? How do you connect with that person on a level where you can actually impact their willingness?
The answer, Evan says, is to use what he calls the most powerful therapeutic weapon he has, the loving power of friends and family.
If you handle this with dignity, respect, with understanding and conviction, we have a very high probability of having that person recognize that the people that care and love that person the most are just not going to roll over, lay down, and let them just continue to flail. It's not going to happen. But that direction, that guidance can get very challenging, especially when it starts to get into some boundaries that may need to be put in place to help that person ultimately make a decision, a rational decision to accept the help that they in their hearts know that they need. There are some times that the person is so out of it, so psychologically compromised, then at that point, the person really does need to be involuntarily hospitalized, stabilized, and then get on to the program for care.
Evan says the initial goal of an intervention is to get the crisis moment managed. Then later, the care plan shifts to follow-up, including continued psychiatric care, counseling, and likely family work. So between your own experiences with depression and other mental health challenges, and seeing people really at their worst, I mean, you're not seeing somebody who's just, in a typical depressive episode.
I'm seeing the worst.
You are seeing the worst. So what have you learned from those two perspectives that, like, if you could sort of grab the collective society by the shoulders and say, you need to understand this about depression, what would your this be?
That's a great question. You're good. You're good. It's a good question. I think that the number one thing would be that it's real. It's not, depression is not it's not being lazy. It's not wanting to have people have sympathy for you. It is where it is something that is inside you. It is around you, and you don't want to experience it. And it traps you, and it traps the people that surround you. And so I think that in terms of the shaking society, I think it has a lot to do with helping people understand that when you're faced with a loved one that appears to be going through, battling depression, the moment when you find yourself getting angry at them, resentful, this person is ruining my relationship with my other children. This person is ruining my retirement. And I love my child. I love my wife. I
get it.
But it's killing me. It's killing me. Just as much as you feel that person needs to get help, you may need to go get some help for yourself too. And that may be going to a support group, which are wonderful. Finding a counselor that helps people that have loved ones that are dealing with depression, so that you can then have some clarity on how to work with them, be with them. Can be hugely important for your sanity, for your peace of mind, for your emotional stability. And, but most importantly, as far as my orientation goes, for the person that's battling severe symptoms of depression and other mental symptoms of mental illness.
As the other person,
Sure.
you're going to be if you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, because you're not sleeping, sleep, even if you're sleeping, but with one eye open, if you're sleeping and having your nightmares of what ifs and the terrible things that could happen because they can and do.
Exactly.
It is.
You can't concentrate at work.
No.
Right?
No,
you can't concentrate at work. It's affecting your relationships with the other people.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, if you're making that commitment to be with somebody who has those symptoms, that disorder, however you want to call it, illness, then it is incumbent upon you to get some help for you and to work on the issues that how it's affecting you. And by doing that, it then will help you actually be able to help them.
Oh, Evan, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. There's so much wisdom in what you have to offer. And I want to start with that last thing that Evan ended on, which was that it's so necessary for those of us who are in the orbit of people who are struggling to get help for us and to work on how the issues that are affecting us. And that is what allows us to be able to help them. Because I have to confess, Mom, I have heard this oxygen, put your own oxygen mask on first thing since the first airplane ride I was ever on.
Sure.
And honestly, as I grew into an adult, I was like, I'm totally putting the kids on first.
I've always
there's no way
that
if I'm sitting, it doesn't sit right with my heart.
Right.
And so there's a different metaphor that I've been finding really useful. It came my way during the pandemic, and it's that we can't pour from an empty vessel.
So true.
We can't pour from an empty vessel.
And it is so emptying to be involved with somebody who's struggling.
Yes.
You're not sleeping, you're not eating, your attention is constantly diverted. Everything's one eye somewhere else.
No, it is. It's a tremendous strain on all the systems of our body. And it's really loving to the person who is struggling for you to be as stable as possible. And so that's this other piece, which is that I think I learned, or I received messages that to love someone who's struggling is to struggle as much as they're struggling. And the truth is that when we're struggling, we need someone on the side of the pool with the floaty to throw into us.
Oh, yeah.
And so we really need the people on the outside of that experience to be well, grounded, stable, taking good care of themselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. We really need that.
Mm-hmm. And I have previously interviewed an interventionist who deals primarily with the addiction side of it. And he said, the number one thing is that the family has to educate itself, and boundaries are so key. The way Evan put it was that we can't create a petri dish in which the symptoms continue to grow and thrive. And with the best of intentions, we might be bringing them meals and, doing their laundry and all the things that we can do. And I hate words like enabling, but I understand how it could be applied here. We don't know, where somebody's, especially with a mental health thing, you're sick. We know how we treat people who are sick. Right. We do all the things, but it was a really eye-opening to hear him use the metaphor of a petri dish, and that we may in fact be allowing the symptoms to grow as opposed to challenging the person to get help and shift something significantly.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of what you're describing is that a lot of us learn how to help someone who is struggling, yes, through empathy, but also through pity, which is let me do for you. And when we do things for other people, it's actually disempowering for them. It's actually saying, I don't trust you or your abilities to get yourself out of this. And sometimes, even on a subconscious level, we're doing it because it breaks my heart so much to know that you're going through that I want to do something so that I don't have to think about it anymore. So that I can say, well, I dropped off chicken broth.
So that I feel better.
And so for this piece, that what he mentions in terms of the planning is that he describes this plan as very loving, very comprehensive, And loving both has really high support and really high expectations. And that's, I think, where we sometimes fall apart, which is in the interventions that we see on TV that we talked about at the very beginning of the episode. It's an ambush. It's something that the family is doing to the person, right? It's about the sort of shock and awe of like, will this be your wake-up call? And there's lots of ways to have wake-up calls. And that one makes for really good TV, and perhaps better TV than all of the ways that we can also show love and accountability. So yeah, high love and high accountability is how I sort of describe doing things with other people, not to them or for them, and not ignoring it. And this loving piece that Evan brings, this high empathy, not pity, that he brings to the work that he does, it's so critical. Because when someone is struggling, you are in so much pain and you are constantly monitoring for threats. And so when someone approaches you with love, even if you go, I don't know about this guy, I don't know about this Evan guy, I don't know about this intervention, I don't know about this plan, but the more times that Evan is able to send out signals of love, I'm trying to love you, not control you, I'm trying to love you, not control you, the number of times that a family can do that, or a loved one, or a roommate, or a neighbor, I'm trying to love you, not control you, eventually that's what allows some of the light to peek in and the person to become a little more porous and accept those things. But when it's if you don't, then blah, that the nervous system registers that as a threat. It's a threat. You're trying to control me. You don't care. And I shut down to what you're trying to do to me. So we have to create opportunities for that porousness. And I mean, it sounds so kind of woo-woo for me to say, like, that love is what allows people to feel safe, but there's a lot of neurobiology that makes that very clear. And that's not through, no offense to Hallmark cards, but like Hallmark card love sentiments. It's actually through our tone of voice. It's through our body language. It's through the speed at which we do things. It's the level of consistency. Is this something we do once? Or is this something we do once a week? Or is this something we do once a day? Are we offering care to this person with the true intent of loving them, not trying to make ourselves feel better, not trying to control them so that my life feels more in control? Because when you're out of control, I feel out of control. When it's like, you are hurting. And Evan talks about that so beautifully here. He's like, people don't want to be hurting, and we can join with them in that pain. He said, would you like to not feel that pain? Or would you like to not have those nightmares? Well, of course I would, but there's no way to do that. Okay, but would you agree? Let's find a way to do that, right? That is such a crystal clear example of doing with. None of us want to be struggling, but also sometimes it is our brains and our bodies and the world can make the path out of that place completely obscured from our own point of view. We need someone else to come in, and we often need someone else to come in who's not a part of that same petri dish.
Right. A little too close. I love your use of the word porous.
The more that someone like Evan is able to step in, and because the behavior isn't affecting Evan's life, Evan's able to show up with porousness, leading with love, with a nervous system that just wants to see the best for this person. And that's often different than the people who are impacted by the ripple effects of these disorders and diseases.
And we have no judgment for somebody feeling dysregulated, feeling out of control, feeling impatient and worn out, and all the things that a caregiver can feel, because they're real and they're very understandable.
Absolutely. And there are just ways that they can get in the way of us actually getting to the core of it.
Agreed.
The last thing that I want to offer is Evan has this beautiful quote in your interview where he says, you can yell all you want, but you're not going to yell away the disorder or disease. You're not going to yell the depression out of them. If anything, what you might end up doing inadvertently is you may end up putting your loved one further into a corner that makes it even that much more difficult for them to ever reach out and go, fine, I'll get some help. And there's this quote from Joe Brummer, who wrote this book about sort of trauma-informed behavior and restorative justice. And he writes, you can't punish the trauma out of someone, but you can punish it into them.
Ooh.
And so in this case, a disorder or disease, doesn't necessarily have its roots in trauma, but you might end up not just pushing someone further into a corner that makes it harder for them to reach out and go, fine, I get help, but sometimes those can create some new traumatic experiences for the person who is suffering with the disorder and the disease.
Great point. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you, Evan. And we will be back next week and hope you join us again.
We really hope that this discussion helps give some language or context to your own depression or ideas for how to support someone else in your life living with it. We invite you to check out the hundreds of episodes in our archive and to explore both the Resource Hub and treatment options on recovery.com. Depression is too dark a road to walk alone.
We'll be back next week.